sometimes it's helpful to take a step back and just look at the wider picture. In fact, it's always helpful to do that rather than to get lost in the minutia of the latest outrage. And I'm as guilty as anyone of the latter. When something really grinds my gears, as they say. I'm as prone to go off on those kind of things as anyone. But I want to look at the wider picture here, and I don't want to go on too long here in this video. I just want to remind us all of something, and that is this word misinformation. Now, I've talked about how how I believe when you hear the word misinformation, most often you are being propagandized. Just like when you hear the phrase conspiracy theory, you are generally speaking being propagandized. It's a shortcut. It's a means by which the propagandist doesn't really have to show why he is right or demonstrate why his opponent is wrong. He can just say conspiracy theorist, misinformation, and he sort of wills that to function as an argument in itself, when in fact it is no such argument in itself. But the word misinformation is worth examining, because I am fascinated in a way at how I and so many other people didn't see it coming the day when they would use misinformation to excuse censorship. And we've seen that in full force, haven't we? We've seen that in full force for the last 5 or 6 years, especially the last 2.5, 3 years. It hasn't really ever stopped. And it's what they claim applies to any point of view that they wish to disparage or marginalize. Now, it's useful to see the difference between quote unquote misinformation and things like slander and libel. Slander and libel, of course, are illegal and have always been illegal. You can't just get up and say, so-and-so did this nefarious thing, and accuse him of doing this nefarious thing when it's not true. That's slandering his name, or maybe that's speaking libelously about him. I don't really know. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't really know where slander ends and libel begins. But I do understand with both slander and libel, that there are issues there. And freedom of speech doesn't include one getting to say something about somebody else that damages his reputation that isn't true. But misinformation is neither slander nor libel. Misinformation is simply the categorization they affix to a perspective or a point of view that they don't like. That's it. That's what it all comes down to. But they act as if somehow they have an exclusive claim on the truth, and others who are looking at this issue are just purveyors of misinformation if they don't represent the quote unquote truth, the party line, the story that they're wanting to push on everyone. So misinformation is a very, very slippery word. It has a very slippery meaning, because one man's misinformation is another man's information. And that's not to say there's no truth to anything. It's just saying truth can be complicated, right? And people ought to be allowed if we believe in freedom of speech, if freedom of speech actually has merit, then people should be allowed to say, I see this set of data, but I don't think I don't think you guys are right who are promoting X. I think Y is true rather than X. And the people who promote X, who just happen to be the most powerful, and to not have a monopoly, not have a consensus. That's another thing that must be understood. When they behave as though they have a consensus, they don't. The consensus is a contrived consensus. It's a consensus of people who have essentially decided they're going to back the horse that is backed by the powerful ones. And it's advantageous. It's in their interest to say X rather than Y, because Y, while it might be true, isn't what is being pushed by the powerful claque out there for their no doubt nefarious purposes. So we've been called misinformed. We've been called purveyors of misinformation for a while now, and it's been claimed we're not really infringing on your freedom of speech because, number one, you don't. You still have the right to say whatever you want, but you just have to accept the consequences of it, which isn't really freedom of speech. Okay, if you say, you person out there who expresses opinion Y rather than opinion X, you've got freedom of speech, but then we get to ruin your life. We get to even if we don't take legal steps against you, we get to use our power and control and influence to do various things to isolate you, and to render you an outcast, render you someone who it is radioactive to know, or to like, or to associate with. What I'm saying is the game is rigged. And it's always been rigged, to some extent or degree, but we haven't seen it just go into such malignant degree of overload as we have since, let's say, 2015 or 2016, but especially picking up right around 2020 or so, leading up to the present. But of course, there are plenty of places in the Western world which is supposed to be all about freedom, right? That's supposed to be the what one of the things that makes Western civilization better is that there's this history of respect for individual liberties. Most plainly seen in English common law tradition, but seen elsewhere as well, in other strains of the Western world, which was fed by Greco-Roman ideas and notions, whereas other parts of the world are ostensibly more prone to despotism and to not really seeing a value or a purpose in individual liberty to challenge those in authority. Well, that is not the case to a large degree in the West right now. Because there are still countries in the West where, again, as I've said before in a prior video, you tweet the wrong thing, you can get arrested. Even in jolly old England, even in the UK, the origin of English common law that I just spoke of, John Stuart Mill's home country. Not the idea of freedom of liberty or liberty began with John Stuart Mill, but I believe it begins with the idea that every man is endowed with, is created in the image and likeness of God. I think that it goes back to that idea or notion, and is therefore accorded certain, if I may put it this way, rights. But now they say you are guilty of misinformation. if you say Y is true instead of saying all, in chorus, in unison with the powerful people, uh, instead of saying X, 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 X is true, X is true. If you slip in well, Y is pretty compelling, I don't know, then you're in trouble, whoever you are, from the highest echelon to the lowest. You are going to be facing some problems, whether legal or otherwise. Steps will be taken against you. You will be, as I said, isolated and rendered someone that others should not associate with if they know what's best for them. Yes, social credit, it's here. We talk about how social credit is coming. No, social credit is here. It's here already. So I think it's useful. I ended up talking a bit more length than I thought I would, but I was meaning to make this short and sharp. So much for that. But I do think that it's worth considering how much mileage they've gotten out of this term misinformation. At first, they used the term fake news, but then that sort of got co-opted by the other side, and they couldn't really say that anymore. So they just went with misinformation, and that's the reason why you see these irritating paternalistic, disclaimers under so many videos or under things that have been posted on social media, if they're not just outright censored and their users removed and cast into the outer darkness. But just remember, when you hear that word misinformation, when someone says misinformation, they're repeating. They're either it's either a powerful person using this word in a disingenuous way to shut up dissent, or it's somebody who is looking out for his own interests and echoing what a powerful person is saying, by echoing this disingenuous term, misinformation. Those are my thoughts on the subject. Please tell me yours below if they are worthwhile. If not, don't bother. Thanks for watching. My name's Andy Nowicki. Talk to y'all soon.